I'm Jim Leman from Rapid Recon. We're here today to talk to Dan Kommeth, who's Director of Sales at the Kenwood Dealer Group.
Dealer Group, correct.
Dealer Group. This is your place, the video chat channel from Rapid Recon. Dennis McGinn, our CEO, is normally here, but I'm filling in today. And Dan, why don't we just go ahead and get this conversation going? I know you're a process guy, and that's real big for what you do at your dealership. What is a process? What does that mean? And why is it important?
Well, I think it's the most important thing, just because as opposed to showing up every day for work and just winging it, having some sort of a plan, really, you know, that the process is the plan. And really, any good business or sports team, you know, the team doesn't show up to the field on game day and then just go out there and run plays. You practice your plays. In the dealership business, we don't have practice. Every day is live. So if you have a process, you can measure something because you can reverse engineer it, because you define as a team, what does success look like. For a sports team, it's a championship. But for a car dealership, it is something completely different. But a process helps you work backwards from that and then measure the specific things that you want to see happen, so that you get the desired result. If you don't, you can just look at it and say, okay, well, how do we redo the process? Because if you see something, and most of the time, your first effort doesn't work, your second one, third one. So really having that mentality of, we're going to figure this out. The process is the best way that I've learned on how to do that.
So let me see if I understood that. So you start with a goal or target in mind, and you reverse engineer that. What are the steps or changes or people we need to make that happen?
Yeah. That's, I mean, the first part is like everybody, you know, understanding what the goal is, right? Because that communication obviously is once again important. So it's like, you know, say you have a desired amount of cars you want to sell, or CSI scores, or profitability, or something like that. When all the stakeholders agree that it's like, okay, that's the goal, and that's step one, right? Then from there, it's like, okay, how do we break this down into smaller chunks so that we are all going in the same direction? And that's really where, I mean, that's getting into the meat of it, because how you get there is everything, you know. And really just the people side of it, yes, that plays into it. But if you have the right process, if you don't have the right people, then you have to go find the people that will fit that. Once again, you know, using sports analogies, that you have, you know, a coach has a system that he or she runs. Well, they find the players that fit that system. Okay. It doesn't mean that somebody who doesn't fit that system is not a good player, but they might not fit that system, right? So you first assess goal, steps, people, you know, going into that, and then just sort of iterate until you get it going in the direction you want it to go.
So I know you focus a lot on process and vehicle reconditioning.
Yes.
And we've said at Rapid Recon that often it's the reconditioning is the engine that sort of drives everything that happens all the way up to the sale of the vehicle,
yep,
particularly used vehicles. So can you share with our audience an example of a process in reconditioning that you put in place that has perhaps improved your performance there?
I think it's important to, once again, have the key stakeholders be part of what you're looking to improve. So in reconditioning, getting the players together, you don't know what you don't know. Like I don't have the best ideas. It's the people that are in the front lines that have the best ideas. So it can be something from a detailer that says, hey, you know, it's taking too long for me to get my details done because of the, you know, shampoo, you know, that thing is just terrible. We need to get a new one. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Well, all of a sudden his detail times improve, you know, and that improves there. So it's really coming from the ground up, really, where you find those efficiencies, because the people are on the front lines, or they have an idea about how they could combine something. It's like, well, hey, while I'm doing this, I could also do that.
What type of culture environment, though, fosters that freedom, if you will, in someone who's a tech detailing cars who may feel they don't have much power or say-so in a shop? So what kind of a culture is necessary to foster that type of, hey, I've got an idea?
I think the whoever is leading the team has to create that by just actually doing it. So you can have, and not do it once. So you have to have a regular cadence. It doesn't mean that it has to be, every day. It could be, once a week. It could be once a month. It depends on the size of the organization. But when you have those gatherings, meetings, whatever you want to call them, on a regular basis, and you're like, hey, this is why we're doing it. This is what's gonna, we're gonna just get together to look at the results that we're getting. But we want your feedback. At first, in my experience, those people are like, does he really mean that? Can I speak my mind? But then after, a few times, they're like, okay, it's safe to speak up, right? And bring that. So it takes time, really, to build that culture. It doesn't happen overnight. I mean, culture, the seismic shifts don't happen like that. It's just that building that trust, building that feeling of freedom in the employees' minds, because then what happens is the ideas really start to flow, but this is months into it.
Sure.
It's not something
I can
that happens
imagine
right out of
You
the
have to
gate.
build trust with each other, as you said, and familiarity, and know you're not going to get chopped.
Yeah.
as you suggested.
Yeah. And then, but the good part is when they come up with the idea and it's tried, even if it doesn't work, the employee's like, hey, somebody listened and we tried.
Yeah.
Maybe it didn't work, but at least they didn't say, that's stupid.
Yeah.
That's never going to work, or that's not my idea. If you have people like that in the culture, talking about the players where, people who need to hog all the credit, need to be the person behind that, they get kind of exposed in a situation like that, and they end up, kind of exit stage left.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. I can imagine for a manager who has his crew coming up to him and suggesting ideas, if that manager isn't confident in themselves, they could see that as a threat.
Mm-hmm.
So you're right, you have to have the right. Do you do some training for those guys too, to say, don't take this as a divot to you,
Yeah.
but to grow, this is wisdom to grow your team?
Yeah, each situation is obviously unique.
Sure.
Trying to find that, those unique things, like what pushes their buttons, and I don't mean in a negative way, in a positive way. So when you have somebody that I think gets into a negative mindset, they're feeling like they're not enough, right? So if you feel the need that you have to steal other people's ideas to take credit for them as your own, it's like, well, you don't feel like you're smart enough to come up with your own ideas, right? So it's like, okay, so how do we, obviously in private, this isn't, one-on-one sessions with your supervisor and saying like, okay, how can we get you feeling more comfortable? Because you're not in the, most people aren't in the role they're in because they were not qualified. They're there because for some reason they were put in that chair, right? So it's like, okay, let's go back to it. And let's see, why, what do you think you can contribute to the team? What can you add? Everybody adds something different, right? Everybody's not quarterback of the team, right? There's only one person who's a quarterback, but that doesn't mean that all the rest of the positions aren't important. What is it that your unique skill set is bringing to the team to try to get them out of that negative mindset?
So we were talking earlier about this. With the used car market as it is today, and looking to where maybe it's going to change 18 months or more down the road, what things are you focusing on within your group to be as sharp as you can be right now in recon and in used car sales and the whole thing, and then also preparing yourself for when the pipeline gets filled up again, you're able to do well.
I think with reconditioning, the role that it plays in the dealership, and I had to learn this, the hard way. This was years ago, but really in terms of it's a big engine that drives the operations of the dealership and the profitability. Because if your used cars are not up and ready in a timely fashion, you either give up gross by discounting the car because the customer says, I don't know, I'll take it, but you better take some more money off or whatever. But the throughput of the dealership is so important from a cash flow perspective. So really, if your used car reconditioning process, you get it dialed in, and I didn't know what I didn't know. Once again, so it's like I was a manager just frustrated at the fact that I was a used car manager, and I said, where the heck are my cars? I don't know where they are, right? And I've got customers that are calling, customers that are emailing, So I think in terms of the market changes every day, right? We don't make the market makes the market. The used car market, the people that don't have their vehicles up and ready, because the customer wants to buy it now, right? We've created that culture here in America, which is, hey, it is what it is. But when the customer wants to make that purchase and your car's not ready, you might lose that sale, right? And you don't get that second chance to make it. You can tell yourself, like in the old day, well, somebody else will come down the road and buy the car. But the reality is, it's like there's a lot of competition out there, and if your car's not ready, you're just going to get left behind.
Right. Well, even if it's a couple of days later, you've got more holding costs adding up on that car.
Absolutely.
Your gross is eroded by that much, or potentially so.
Yeah. Yeah. So paying attention to those details as we come out of it. Who knows? I don't know what it's going to look like. Anybody who tells you knows what it's going to look like, they're not telling you the truth, because every day show up to work and like, okay, what happened now? How are we gonna have to adapt and change? And that's back to the process. Why is the process important? Because process gives you the adaptability to change as business conditions change. If you just show up and wing it, you're going to get eaten alive.
So what do you say to your peers in the industry who say, why is Recon so important today? I'm selling everything I get in. It's pre-sold. It doesn't even matter if the car's standing tall on the lot. I can sell them.
Well, I guess I would argue that, it's, yes, profitability, you can look at it and say, well, it doesn't take any skill, but I would argue that when you have the faster turn times, when your cars are up and ready, like I said, not having to discount that car, because the customer, they still think it's their job to ask for a discount, and they should, right? You have to justify the price. So all the justification that you have, reconditioning is just, hey, here's not only is the car standing tall, but here's what we did to the car. Here's the improvements that we made, right? I use the analogy of a house. If you're looking at two houses that are similar in price, and one house that what the previous owner did, including, oh, by the way, you put a new roof on last year at $20,000 or whatever, and you're looking at those two houses, well, one is going to stand above the other, right? The same is true of the cars. When the customer is out there shopping, if they know with full confidence, where they're like, well, this is, I'm paying this much for the car, but here's a little bit more of what I can expect. I don't need to replace the brakes and tires because it's been done. Something like that. That's worth a little bit more. How much more? I don't know, but I would venture to say where it's like in the long run, we're going to make more money doing it that way as opposed to.
Does the customer, if you go through that example you just talked about to point out the improvements, the investments you made to improve that car, do they then feel more confident in that car? Do they feel that this added value is, I guess what I'm trying to say, does all that actually translate into them feeling more secure and comfortable with that transaction?
I think the way we try to position it with our sales consultants is that we're willing to share all this information with them. And we know that they're not just shopping that car. So we can ask the question without even asking the question, are the other cars that you're looking at, do you know all the information about it? And right now, I'm sure things will change, but right now, the majority of our competitors are not doing that. So we think we have an advantage there. So we don't have to ask the question. We can ask the question, but then in the back of the customer's mind, they're like, yeah, why didn't that other guy tell me what they'd done to the car, right? So we can have that there. It's like, hey, we're not trying to hide anything. Here's the Carfax. Here's what we did do it. Here's the,
the Recon report.
Here's all the stuff, that you would want to know as an owner. And when the customer gets to that point where they're like, you know what, I have all the information I need to make a decision, right? And then once again, ask for that discount, and work all that. But when they have all the information, they feel they're ready to make a decision, that's when they say yes. That's when they are closing themselves, right? We're not holding a gun to their head.
Sure.
We're just giving them all the information. You make the best decision for you. Do we win all of them? No.
Sure.
But
it's not a
I think
if
you iterate, where it's like, okay, you do that enough times, we're going to win more deals than we're going to lose.
Cool. Dan, thanks a lot for spending some time this morning.
Absolutely, Jim.
Yeah,
good to see you.
Thanks. This is Jim Leman with Rapid Recon with your place.